That is the amazing privilege that we have been given. I think we haven't stumbled upon it. We've worked hard in many incarnations, I believe, to get to a place where we can have enough security and enough freedom in the mind that is not now having to focus on just existing and just struggling to eat, struggling to be safe, struggling for survival. What an amazing, amazing opportunity. We are fools if we do not avail of satsang. And I think that's the purpose of our incarnation. We've been given privilege to use it, not just to indulge, because what you often find, those who have been given privilege, it opens to a kind of indulgence. Well, I've seen it in myself, like everything I speak, because I've seen it in myself. If the intention is there and the direction is there, to come out of your small self. Yes, of course, you wobble now and then, sometimes big wobbles, but there's some direction, and that's why I read these scriptures. They give me a direction. Because in the forest of all your thoughts and your feelings and your events that happen in your day and all kinds of expectations coming at you and your expectations placed on others and everything that is happening, it's a forest of humanness. It's a forest of experience. It's an onslaught, actually, of thinking and feeling and doing. And how can we find our way through it? I just read these scriptures and the wobbles don't matter at all because the direction is there. So whether you are listening to the satsang for the first time or whether you have come many times to satsang, and you would have heard me say many times how much these scriptures have given me that guidance. But there was also a point, a really big turning point in my life where I stopped wondering how far along the path I was. And I think somehow we have to find that balance, because as soon as I say giving us direction, and it does, it opens up a path forward through this forest. But I don't mean it in terms of there being a reaching point. And somehow we have to know those two things are not in conflict with each other. They're not opposing each other. That there is not the destination which is built in your imagination. It's not that kind of a destination. Because as soon as you say path, you're someone on the path with a destination. And then there's individual will, ego, effort. And then, of course, there has to be an evaluation. Am I meeting that effort? Am I succeeding in that effort? Is that effort taking me there? Or have I gotten distracted and I'm going somewhere else? And then, of course, all that confusion, again, you're in the forest. I always think that this is what the scriptures give me. And I, of course, sat with an enlightened being, and being in his presence was that transcending force. Just to sit in his presence, I didn't really have to make any effort. The effort was just in the presence, but now I have to make the effort. And that's a part of the work too. Like a life raft. Hold on to these scriptures. The greatest achievement is to become like the sky, that isn't affected and does not change with whatever passes through it. Well, that's beautiful. Just that alone. That our greatest achievement is to come like the sky. How is the sky going to put food on my table? How is the sky going to keep me warm and dry? How is the sky going to bring me love and friendship and humor and excitement? That's a crazy idea, the sky. The greatest achievement is to become like the sky, that isn't affected and does not change with whatever passes through it. The sky does not change when a bird flies through it. The sky does not change because a mountain reaches up into it. When you know you are nothing, which means when you know your personality and your achievements is not what you really are, you become vast and free like the sky. Such a person is not bound and stuck in any personality type and is not rigid in any concept. You know, if you start to watch your inner dialogue, you'll become aware of how much you are trying to describe yourself like this. I'm like this. I feel like this. And I should be like this. I shouldn't be like this. So personality type doesn't mean you've just read a kind of magazine. I'm A type, I'm B type, once I was described as a level 3 type. I don't know if the number 1 was meant to be the greatest or the number 10. Who knew? Maybe the 3 was the third and the final, or the first and the last. I put a grade to it. Right? So I love this. Such a person is not bound and stuck in any personality type. We have these personalities. They're really funny things, like a kind of comedy show. Can be a comedy to ourselves. Marianne recently said something beautiful. She said, the purpose is to walk lightly on this earth. You know, that's taking this personality not so seriously. That's really beautiful. The personality type and not be rigid in any concept. And it is not our fault. We have been told certain norms and standards, and we've taken them to be real. They've become a concept. Who says you can't have chocolate for breakfast? My mother said, if I eat chocolate for breakfast, I'll get worms. You know, I believed that till I was about 20. I never had chocolate until I was about 20. And now with my sister and I, because we both laugh at it, when I go and visit her for morning tea, she always brings out the chocolate. And we sit and have a cup of tea and chocolate. Why shouldn't you eat chocolate for breakfast? Why should it only be reserved for afternoon tea? Ridiculous concept. So we're not rigid in any concept, not stuck in any personality type. Such a person is loved and respected by all, even if others don't recognize their vastness. So even if one doesn't recognize this knowledge, the vastness of this knowledge, still like a kind of fragrance, this knowledge still reaches everyone on whatever level they're on, or whatever is the purpose. The greatest achievement is to go beyond your smallness and recognize your wholeness. Beautiful. I'm just reading you aspects of a bigger story, which is about the king. We talked about it in a couple of other satsangs. The king who is trying to become a yogi. It turns out actually because he's more in competition with his wife, the queen, who became enlightened. So instead of surrendering to his wife, because that wasn't going to do for a king's ego, he thought, well, I want what she's got. And instead of him surrendering to what he had right there, which is symbolic also of what we have right here, he went on a big pilgrimage. He was fasting and living in a very humble hut and only wearing a loincloth and suffering the cold. And he did all this, what's called tapasya, hardships. And he missed the point entirely. There was enlightenment sitting in his palace right there in the company of his queen, that he couldn't surrender his ego. And that was the thing. He could surrender his riches and everything else, but he couldn't surrender his ego. So what happened is that she dresses up as a young boy, a young man, and goes into the forest and gives him the teachings because he can't accept it from his queen. So this is the teachings of that young boy to the king. The greatest achievement is to go beyond your smallness and recognize your wholeness. So giving up something, like he had done, can be very artificial. It has to be the sincere recognition of the eternal power that is pure and has no form. That purity and formlessness is your inner soul, or your inner love, or your inner being. And you have been blind to it because you have remained in your small body-mind identified self. You need satsang for the expansion of your awareness not just to be alone stuck in your ideas, which are misconceptions. Trust that you have the power to know yourself beyond all the qualities and characteristics of your body and personality. Trust yourself. I love that. Trust that you have the power to go beyond all these qualities. And beyond also means attachment to your so-called good qualities. The qualities about yourself that you like also. Don't remain stuck there too. The tendency is always to accept the criticism and always go towards the criticism rather than towards the praise. But ultimately you have to go beyond both, because both are pertaining to the personality. Both are pertaining to the small self. And the point is to know your wholeness, your vastness. It's nothing to do with the qualities that are appreciated or not appreciated. If you know your true greatness, which is beyond your surface level qualities, then you will not be diminishing your power. And then you will be able to achieve great things. How amazing these two things go together, your effort and your relinquishing of your ego. It doesn't mean you're going to relinquish your ego and then sit and do nothing. You will be called to do something. Something will come in front of you. Do you do that with the sense that it's going to fulfill your small self? Or do you do it knowing that you have already achieved what is to be achieved, and the rest is just whatever this body has to engage with? This is the next chapter, which is Gyaan and Dhyaan. Gyaan is Gyaan with a G, and Dhyaan, Dhyaan. Gyaan, Dhyaan. You don't have to remember those words, but what's interesting is how closely they sound, because it means knowledge and meditation. Sanskrit is an incredibly wise language. Look how those two words sound exactly the same. It is described as two wings of a bird. Gyaan, Dhyaan. Like the bird needs both wings to fly. We need both in order to find our way through this forest of our human experience. This word Gyaan is its own word just for self-knowledge. We only have knowledge in English, but we have to put the word self there to distinguish it from knowledge of things, or knowledge of time, knowledge of experience, knowledge of the emotions, knowledge of people. This is self-knowledge, the knowledge of the inner self, Gyaan. So now the king, accepting the teachings from this young boy, because he doesn't have the ego association, my wife, my child, my anything. He's able somehow to receive the wisdom teachings, plus he's probably damn fed up with his fasting and his horrible state of existence. So the king, Shikhaa, his name is, asks, which is all of our questions, like, okay, I hear all of this. Yes, you're talking about I am the sky, I am this greatness, I am this egoless being. How can I get free from the grip of the selfish mind that is driven by desire? Because even his desire for liberation is driving him into this painful state. How can I get free from the grip of the selfish mind that is driven by desire? And I don't mean just desire for things, or as a young person, desire for love and affection and all that. At its core, the desire to defend ourselves against death, against this small bubble being broken. That's the quintessential desire. And rightly there to keep us in existence. What an amazing conundrum for a person. The very thing that comes with this body identification, keep it safe, keep it intact, is the very thing that is gripping us into pain. It's an amazing conundrum. So of course we have to ask how to get out of this conundrum. How do I live with a body and be free of the body? How do I live with all these qualities of the personality, and yet walk lightly, humorously, lovingly, consciously. How can I get free from the grip of the selfish mind? And here the word selfish, maybe I wouldn't have used that. The egocentric mind, that I feel, I think, this is what I believe, these are my concepts, these are my expectations, all of that small self stuff. So how can I get free from the grip of the small mind that is driven by desire? I don't think that just understanding the problem will release me from the trap. Is this not our question? So, how do we answer this? So Kumbh, the young man, who was actually the queen, the first two major keys towards getting out of the grip of the troublesome making mind is Gyaan, recognizing the higher self, that's the knowledge, and the second is Dhyaan, meditation. Whenever you are in doubt about your direction, just remember Gyaan and Dhyaan and make sure you practice them regularly. Just as you make sure that you eat 2 or 3 times a day, and you make sure that you sleep every night, you should never lapse from Gyaan and Dhyaan, from satsang, or this direction of your mind towards your higher self, and meditation, sincerely sitting with it. With Gyaan, recognition of your higher self, even if you don't feel that you truly know that your own consciousness is unlimited and free, you must believe it. Many people say this in the satsang. Well, how do I know this is true? I don't actually experience it. How do I know it's true? And certainly I've sat with this also. And it's not really enough to say, just believe it. Although that also works. Just be with it. I found for myself to make that commitment to Dhyaan and Gyaan, to satsang and meditation. What was my alternative? To feel the pain, fear, worry, and constriction of living in the small self. So what did I have to lose? When you have suffered enough and you don't want to suffer anymore, or if you're smart enough to know that you don't want to suffer, and maybe you don't need to continue down that road that others have in suffering, then let me at least be open to this. Let me sit with it. So it's deeper than just a belief. I never use this word belief, and even though it's written here, I would not have used it. It is an openness with intelligence to see what has not worked, in the contrast to maybe this door will open to liberation from the wheel that has been trying to get out and has not got out of it yet. At least I can give it a try. What would happen? And also there's something in the satsang that even initially it feels that it's only resonating in your intellect. And that's a lot of people say, yeah, I get what you're saying. I get the theory of it, but I can't put it into practice. As it says here, that is really just a matter of practice. And a lot of people don't want to do the practice. They want the instant result. Just add water and stir, and boom, you've got realization. That would be really nice. But somehow the divine being, as Jeffrey said, with the perfect design and plan, said, no, you have to work for this. You've got to make this important. It's not like a kind of side trip. And then you go, well, it didn't work. Well, how much energy did you put into it? John's brother is a great pianist, and his father a great musician also. They put work into it. And Travis is here in the satsang. He didn't just look at the piano and say, well, it didn't work. I sat and tried to play it one day and it didn't work. He sat again and again and again and again. And now he can play the piano without any effort, but he applied effort. So there has to be some effort here. So just as you make sure you eat and all of that, can you reserve a little time in your day? Even how much time is invested in complaining. in finding fault or in feeling criticism towards yourself or to others. How much time is expended there? At least save that time for meditation and satsang. So it doesn't even impinge on your other things. Just any time you can exchange suffering for satsang. So then it says, like, how do I know it? I know it kind of intellectually, but how can I really know it? You cannot get free if you keep thinking you are bound. You're investing time in this fortifying your ego identification. What would happen if I stopped doing that? Does that require a belief? Let me make an experiment, just like a scientist would. What would happen, says the scientist, if I put that chemical with that chemical, or if I grew that kind of a bacteria in this kind of environment? They put it into action and watch for the results. What would happen if I didn't follow that story into pain? Make that your scientific experiment. It's not belief. What would happen? I've done that. I see the direction towards pain. It beckons us. There's some kind of intoxicating force that we feel that we will be secure on all fronts if I fight the fight, if I defend and justify, and if I do all of that stuff that has never led me anywhere good. That there's something that, well, this time if I do it, no. And you can catch yourself in the moment and go, let's take a breath. And there's a momentum that still goes towards that, and you don't go with it. You don't speak on it. You don't act on it. It's a great power. You can never get free if you keep thinking you are bound. You are never helpless, but a person makes themselves helpless just by believing that they are. You only become weak by accepting weakness, and it makes yourself weak. So by listening to and reading the words of the enlightened ones, whose consciousness became fully lit and expanded, this will greatly help you to get out of the control of the troublemaking, weak mind. That means the satsang. Listening to these teachings, it will greatly help in getting out of the control of the trouble-making, weak mind. So that's the Gyaan, the knowledge, the satsang, the teachings, the putting your attention on something higher, the inner study. The second major key, which is meditation, Dhyaan, goes hand in hand with Gyaan, or as I said, the image of the two wings of the bird. They go together. Meditation actually brings you to the experience of peace that is not dependent on any other experience. This is really a beautiful description of meditation. We even go into meditation with the desire to experience peace. It's a more difficult approach to stay with it. If you go in with the expectation, I'm going to feel like this, a preconceived idea of what meditation is, a prejudiced idea, a colored view of what is meditation. Meditation is not an experience. It is not dependent on any experience, whatever you call that. It is a non-experience. And that's why it's hard to use this word. And that's why it is called the realization. And he used the word experience, but I would say the realization of peace and stillness of the mind is the state of samadhi. You have to realize it. It has to be revealed. The attachment and the grasping and the desiring for it to be an experience has to be relinquished and released, and those layers melting. What remains is that stillness. That's it. Knowing yourself. Yeah, that's it. Beautiful. So then it gets into the shoulds. And then we'll close our eyes now. you should meditate twice a day and make sure you give your mind and entire nervous system time to settle down so that the light of self can shine from within. I love that. Describing meditation as just taking time. Don't go rushing in with preconceived ideas of what you will experience. Give it some time to give your mind and entire nervous system enough time to settle down. That's important first. How can the revelation be revealed? How can God consciousness be revealed if you're spinning always in the surface level, small, egocentric thinking, self? Give it time to settle down so that the light of self can shine from within. Until you learn to settle the mind repeatedly. That's the practice. Until you learn to settle the mind repeatedly and come to see that peace and freedom are always there for you to know, then you will continue to feel very uneasy until you learn this. Even if you feel that it is only your intellect saying that you are not that which changes, the fundamental direction of meditation is, and close your eyes, observe now. We use the mind as an example of the field of change, the realm of change, because thoughts are always changing. They're always coming and going, right? And if you watch them and you're not concluding in them, you're not making any meaning of the thoughts themselves, you're seeing a kind of movement like waves in an ocean, and you're not evaluating anything about yourself. Even those thoughts are not even about you. Even if they appear to be about you, they're not about you. It will become more and more clear that the you is kind of watching or observing. It is described as a knowing power. So in this practice of discerning the unchanging knower from all the changing waves in the mind of what is known or experienced, even if you feel that it is your intellect saying to you that you are not that which changes, that's okay. That's the practice. You have to keep reminding yourself you are the unchanging. You are the unchanging knower. I am the unchanging knower. Because somewhere you do know that this is the truth. Because somewhere you do know this is the truth. It's not entirely the intellect that knows. The inner knower recognizes itself, unchanging, ever present, pure, free. In Sanskrit, Amaramaham, Madhuramaham. And we needn't struggle in meditation. No, we'll just take 10 minutes in silence. Don't struggle. Anytime you feel a struggle or any kind of unsettledness, Don't blame yourself. Just gently repeat in your heart. Heart of hearts, as Swamiji would say. Amaram Ham, Mataram Ham, Amaram Ham, Mataram Ham.